Hello and welcome to Hot or Cold Take, where I provide a take I have in D&D, and you, the lovely commenters, tell me whether it's an incredibly hot take or an incredibly cold take. Gonna start this series off with a proper corker. I think Wish is really strong. Okay, no, but seriously, I think Wish is not just the strongest spell in D&D, but it is the dumbest spell in D&D, and it just shouldn't exist. Period. There you go, maybe that takes a little bit hotter now. So what is Wish? Let's go over the basics first. In fact, let me grab the thingy, PHB, I'll tell you. Right, here we go, page 288 of the Player's Handbook. Wish, it's a 9th level conjuration spell, so, you know, strongest spell category there is. Yep, cool, got it. Takes 1 action to cast. There's only a verbal component, and the effect takes place instantaneously. So already pretty strong, 9th level spell. Cool, on board, here we go. Here's the spell description. Wish is the mightiest spell a mortal creature can cast. By simply speaking aloud, you can alter the very foundations of reality in accord with your desires. So already I'd say that's a pretty big red flag for that one, of being able to change reality, but I'll bear with it, here we go. The basic use of this spell is to duplicate any other spell of 8th level or lower. You don't need to meet any requirements in that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect. That is pretty insane. I mean, the 1000 gold piece bowl you need for Hero's Feast, a 6th level spell? Nope, just don't need it. The 1500 gold piece ruby dust you need for a 7th level force cage? Just don't need it, mate. And the 1000 gold piece diamond and the 2000 gold piece vessel with a sealable lid that you need to literally clone a person? Don't need any of that. You can just clone them. I mean, granted, the clone might die without the vessel because they need to actually, like, you know, live inside of it, but you get my point. And because Wish takes place instantaneously, that 12-hour casting time for Simulacrum becomes 6 seconds. I think it'd be fine if they said that, you know, you could duplicate any spell of 6th level or lower without meeting any components, but being able to duplicate an 8th level spell with a 9th level spell is a bit weird to me. They're so close in level. You go up 1 level of spells and suddenly you can duplicate anything below it without components and without a long casting time. To me, that's a bit nuts. But anyway, let us continue. Alternatively, you can create one of the following effects of your choice. You create one object of up to 25,000 gold pieces in value that isn't a magic item. The object can be no more than 300 feet in any dimension, and it appears in an unoccupied space you can see on the ground. That's a nice easy way to get that vessel you need for the clone spell then, or I guess you could just do a massive diamond cluster and from that farm 25 1000 gold piece diamonds for all those spells you don't need components for. You allow up to 20 creatures that you can see to regain all hit points, and you end all effects on them described in the Greater Restoration spell. I mean, that is crazy strong, but it's a 9th level spell, as like a cool one-off type thing. I think that's okay. You grant up to 10 creatures that you can see resistance to a damage type you choose. I mean, that's fine. It's not even that strong, really. I mean, it's permanent resistance, but I mean, it's not like immunity or anything like that. You grant up to 10 creatures that you can see immunity to a single spell or other magical effect for 8 hours. For instance, you could make yourself and all your companions immune to a Lich's life drain attack. Again, that is super strong in the right circumstances, but it's a 9th level spell. Again, I think that's okay. You undo a single recent event by forcing a reroll of any roll made within the last round, including your last turn. Reality reshapes itself to accommodate the new result. For example, a Wish spell could undo an opponent's successful save, a foe's critical hit, or a friend's failed save. You can force the reroll to be made with advantage or disadvantage, and you can choose whether to use the reroll or the original roll. What? Now look, granted, that doesn't automatically change the result, but you're really stacking it in your favor. But it does retroactively change the past, which is kinda crazy. But that's just scratching the surface, because now we're getting into the real spicy stuff, the meat of what the wish spell is all about. You see, because they've got all these guidelines written out for you, but really, you can just ask for whatever you want. And I quote, "You might be able to achieve something beyond the scope of the above examples. State your wish to the DM as precisely as possible. The DM has great latitude in ruling what occurs in such an instance. The greater the wish, the greater the likelihood that something goes wrong. The spell might simply fail, the effect you desire might only be partly achieved, or you might suffer some unforeseen consequence as a result of how you worded the wish. For example, wishing that a villain were dead might propel you forward in time to a period when that villain is no longer alive, effectively removing you from the game. Similarly, wishing for a legendary magic item or artifact might instantly transport you to the presence of the item's current owner." Now look, I really appreciate the attempts that Wizards have made to make this spell not super busted and not super broken. Trust me, I get that. Like, the DM being able to just say no or something unforeseen happening. I get it, I get the point of it. I'm gonna dive deeper on that point after the last paragraph of this spell's description. Here we go. "The stress of casting this spell to produce any effect other than duplicating another spell weakens you. After enduring that stress, each time you cast the spell until you finish a long rest, you take 1d10 necrotic damage per level of that spell. This damage can't be reduced or prevented in any way. In addition, your strength drops to 3, if it isn't 3 or lower already, for 2d4 days. For each of those days that you spend resting and doing nothing more than light activity, your remaining recovery time decreases by 2 days. Finally, there is a 33% chance that you are unable to cast Wish ever again if you suffer this stress." Let's just place that back up there. Alright, so this basically makes you like the Hulk after he did the snap in Endgame, right? You become super weak, you can't do anything else, and it takes you ages to rest off the stress, and there's a chance that you could never ever do it again. Again, I really appreciate the attempts to not make the spell super broken. But the thing is though, the effects that the spell can do isn't even my problem with the spell. My problem with this spell is the out-of-game ramifications. See, to me, Wish doesn't feel like the character is casting a spell. It's a 9th level spell. When you think of stereotypically strong spells, and bearing in mind 9th level spells are the strongest spells can get. When you think of these high level, amazingly powerful spells, you think of epic casting times, epic effects, huge amounts of damage, teleportation circles, and walls of fire. That's a 4th level spell, I don't know why I picked that example, but amazing, incredible magical effects that have epic casting times, huge amounts of costly components, or stuff that can just do a huge chunk of damage, right? But this is just a verbal component that happens instantaneously. This is them just going, well, I wish this thing, and it happens, right? So to me, this doesn't feel like the character casting a spell. This feels like the player is asking the DM a question. It's the player asking the DM, oh, please, merciful DM, please may I just topple this government? Just give me just a crumb of chaos, please. And like, this places so much pressure on the DM to be ready for anything, and yeah, you can say that the DM needs to be ready for essentially anything anyway. He's playing Dungeons & Dragons, a game of die rolls, but normally, when people say that statement about DMs needing to be ready for anything, they mean like the party might travel in a different direction than you've planned, not suddenly there's no gravity. And yeah, the DM can just say no to whatever the wish is, right? But how lame is that for your players? Imagine you finally get to cast your 9th level spells. You've been waiting for it the whole campaign. You've been planning out this wish for ages. You knew you were going to take the spell, and you planned it out, this crazy concept you've got, and you planned out your wording perfectly so that there's no loopholes, and the DM just goes, nah, it fails. That is going to make your players so resentful, because they know it's not a die roll that screwed them over, it's not the rules, like in the handbook, that screwed them over, it's the DM, the person. Out of game, the person, the DM has rejected them and their ideas. and that can genuinely lead to some out-of-game tension between the DM and the player that's cast Wish. And there's no real easy way to fix this either. I mean, if you and your players all agree that the spell's a bit too busted and you decide to, ban it from your game, great, that's good for you. But if it's something that you've not mentioned beforehand and the DM offhandedly just says, oh, by the way, there's no Wish in my campaign, you, the level 12 wizard who's been planning out future levels and what future spells you're going to be taking on those level ups, you might feel a little bit cheated out of the strongest spell in the game. And yeah, there's a 33% chance that the caster may never be able to cast Wish ever again. But one casting is all they might need in order to destroy your world, either literally or figuratively. And if the player casts Wish with even the slightest whiff of a loophole in it, the DM can jump on that opportunity and punish the player for even daring to cast such a spell. Which really begs the question, what's the point? DM versus player mentalities are some of the worst mentalities to have in Dungeons & Dragons, and I've heard stories of it ruining friendships between some of my friends. And this spell, Wish, it really only invites that. Because you either cast the spell and are horrendously punished for it with unforeseen circumstances, or the DM just says no. You either don't get what you want and you get punished for it, or the spell fails. What would ever be the point of casting it? And if there's never any point in casting it, then why is it in the game? Wish only invites conflict and resentment, or at the bare minimum, extra pressure and stress on the DM. It's the dumbest spell in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and it shouldn't exist. So is that just the hottest take you've ever heard in your life, or is it so cold that an ancient white dragon would feel at home? Let me know in the comments, because you, the commenters, have all the power. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like. And if there's anything else you want to hear my take on, make sure to leave a comment about that as well. Please subscribe and enable notifications to Warcaster as well to be notified as soon as the new videos go live. And if you enjoyed it, let me know, because then I can make more of these things. And if you didn't like it, I can just make other stuff. I don't know why I'm doing half a song now. Like the video, do the YouTube things. If there's any videos on the screen now, if you're watching in the future, then click those as well. I've been Pete Quinnell, follow me on Twitter, @PeteQuinnell. This has been Warcaster. See ya! What was that? Whew, that was bad.